What up, Corner Crew? Welcome back to another episode of the Hip Hop Happy Hour podcast. As always, I am your host, Brad Bailey, and I appreciate you for joining us once again. Been on a little bit of a hiatus. We had some technical difficulties a couple weeks ago, had some personal stuff last week, but you know how we do. We're going to come back. We ain't stopping yet, but without further ado, I want to bring up my guest. He's very well known in the local New England hip hop scene, from New Hampshire to Massachusetts to Connecticut, all around. Very well known in the local cannabis scene also. So let's give it up for Graham Svorten, ladies and gentlemen.
What's happening?
What up, bro? What up?
It's actually pronounced grams for 10.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
I'm pronouncing like it's Swedish, bro.
Yeah. It's actually Norwegian.
Right.
Svorten is a town in Norway.
Yep. I'm familiar.
Yep.
I'm
Yeah.
familiar with the old Viking lore.
Yeah. It's a very interesting. It's a very interesting part of the world and very interesting history. When you look at the history of the Russian people, it's like a mixture of Vikings and Slavs and like a couple other groups. It's a very interesting group of people.
Yeah, it definitely is, for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
thank you for joining us, man. It's been a while. We've been planning this for a little bit. We just been
Yeah.
running some shit, but you know how it goes. You podcast, so you know how it goes.
Yeah. I really like your intro. You have a very good intro.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're working on it. We've been working on it. I think we're into like 65 episodes or so now, something like that. I haven't been keeping count.
Yeah, I know you've been doing it for a minute. I appreciate you having me on, actually. Thank you.
All right, thank you for coming on. But like we like to start this off every time. Tell us who you are and what you're about.
Yeah, so I was born in Boston, Roslindale, and I grew up smoking cannabis there at an early age, like everybody else there. And I think I thought of it as like a thing you did to be like, like edgy. But
Right.
at some point, cannabis, my friend got cancer, and he tried to cure himself with Rick Simpson oil, RSO. And it was right around then I really kind of flipped a switch where I really kind of got anti traditional medicine, I'll say it that way. And I got really into cannabis. And from there, I've always been sort of into history and Boston. Like, I grew up in Boston, so we did a lot of field trips and just interesting stuff to learn about. So bridging the cannabis to the current state of cannabis with the history of hemp, the significance that it played not only in our country but the entire world as they moved westward. Even the covered wagons were hemp, and so when you start to realize that cannabis is actually something that's been stolen from us, humans have an endocannabinoid system. I started learning about all these things, and I got really angry, and I really went full steam on the cannabis. I've always smoked weed, but that's when I really got active. I try to make media and try to kind of tell the story, especially learning and studying and reading. John Dvorak, his website, hempology.org, is an amazing site. And I spent years just reading that website. And so it was interesting to me because I would know the place, like, that they're describing from the 1700s, but I would know it in our contemporary times, So that kind of stuff for me is very fascinating. But sort of coming out of cannabis at the same time. I've been doing music a long time, and I think cannabis and music, they're almost inseparable. I think for people who are into both of those things anyway.
It's like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, I mean, the cannabis opens your awareness, and then you hear things in a different way, or maybe that's part of it. But for me, the music and cannabis is just in my lifestyle. I don't really watch a lot of things. Like, I don't go to the movies. I don't like to watch TV. I listen to a lot of records and I smoke a lot of weed. And that's been the case for like, I don't want to tell me how many years. I have to do some math, but a long time. It's been like just listening to music and smoking weed, like as my leisure time. Obviously that's not what I do when I work, but I've always been sort of into doing media, and I've always been recording people doing music, and with the cannabis stuff, it seemed like a natural thing to start making media around cannabis and legalization and history and the culture. The culture really is the big part of it because you can only talk about rope for so long. Really, it's about the people that are participating, what they're doing, what the artists are doing, the independent people. There's a lot of independent stuff happening as a result of all this cannabis legalization because it's these underground venues, not underground, but they're not traditional. A lot of opportunities for musicians. This weekend, the Homie Collective's happening. It's in Greenfield, Mass. I think there's like 100 bands playing, and this is like not just one show. This is like one of over the summer a number of venues over a number of years at this point. So it's really become this amazing for music. The cannabis as a platform has really enabled a lot of people to get into music and to play. And I've talked to a lot. I do a lot of interviews, and I've talked to a lot of people who do play at festivals. It seems like it's a much better situation. Like playing with the bars historically has been a horrible thing for musicians. It's always been a struggle, not getting screwed. And it's sort of, I'm not gonna say it's taken that piece out of it, but a lot of people are doing really well playing festivals, and people are generous, happy to have them come. People buy merchandise, and it's kind of amazing actually for music.
It really is, and there's a lot of opportunity actually in cannabis itself, and a lot of hip hop artists are getting into, from Cypress Hill right down to from a local Providence group called Dirty Dirty. They have L's Up. Shout out to them. And you can make some really good money also on the side if you put your brand into cannabis. And it's why that it's across the board. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West right now, with trying to get into it because the market's so wide open. But I do notice that a lot of these corporations are starting to swoop in and
big time
buy up all the dispensaries and starting to open up, and they're going to push all the original people out. I can see that coming real soon.
Sure. What's interesting too with music, at the same time with Spotify, with sharing, musicians are getting screwed. It's very hard. Like Snoop Dogg, I remember it came out a month ago, 2 months ago. Say, hey, music industry, what's up? We're selling 1 million downloads. We're not making any money. I think artists are actually looking to rely on sort of like introducing cannabis as part of their brand. Like for instance, Capadonna, he's got the brand Cappuccino. They're going on a tour, but it's Capadonna, but they're also on the flyer is the cannabis brand, and they're going to dispensaries, and that's great. I smoked that weed; it was actually very good. I like Capadonna, so I wouldn't say if I didn't like it, I would, but I did like it. But I mean, it's just one example. That's a Wu-Tang guy, who's out there touring like every other band, trying to figure out how to make cannabis happen for them. And I think even the rock band Gwar. You know who I'm saying? GWAR, Gwar? Yeah, Gwar is doing like pre-rolls.
Ric Flair had his own cannabis line. It's wild. And like I say, it's just going to be, it's such a snowball. It's almost like the oversaturation of hip hop nowadays.
Yep.
Oversaturation of the cannabis market. So it's almost going to be as competitive as the streets were.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, people who smoke weed and rap are gonna like figure out that it's really about genetics. And so when like somebody who's really digging in the crates but also digging into genetics, that's like on that same level. Plus, I think that'll be a game changer. So I think a good example of that. Now the Mendo Boys are obviously like not people outside of cannabis don't necessarily know them, but they're a group. They're doing hip hop and they're very well received, and they're also very good at growing weed. And I think that's a very good example of what it should look like. It's like the weed music shouldn't be by people who like know that it's cool to be representing weed. It should be people who actually like are growing weed and passionate about it, have ideas around it, and it goes through in their message or whatever they're doing. That's my opinion. But it's good to see people who are actually growing weed and doing music, not just like co-signing a pre-roll tube.
Exactly. Not just lending their brand to it. That's the thing. It's the oversaturation. Everyone wants a piece of that pie.
Too. And so now it's every giant MSO is like, we gotta get Redman in or whoever. Not Redman. He's got his own. Whoever, whatever rapper that's well liked.
They actually, because I go to Nova Farms. I live close to the Attleboro location.
I love Nova Farms.
Yeah. So I go there, and they had a New Jersey location open up like about a month ago, and Redman was there opening up their New Jersey location. So he put his name to it. Yeah, like if they wanted to sponsor us, I'd take it in a heartbeat. I'd have a hip hop happy hour pre-roll. I wouldn't care,
Well, they have very limited options to do marketing. So You know, it may be appropriate, especially as there is a clear, you know, connection to hip hop artists specifically. You're not seeing country western artists do it so much, like occasionally rock, but it's really the rappers. You
Right.
know, when you like Slayer's not putting out a sativa.
Hmm.
It would probably be awesome if it is,
It
but
would be dope.
it's like rappers. And so and we hip hop and cannabis is like it's almost like the fourth like it's like almost like the unseen element of hip hop. You know, the fourth element is kind of cannabis. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who are heavy to break in straight edge didn't do no weed either. But a lot of people did do weed, especially in the '90s. Graffiti writers. I don't know if there's many graffiti writers who didn't smoke weed
Right.
minimally. You know.
But yeah, it did. Like I said, it's peanut butter and jelly, man. It really is.
Yeah, but I would say I mean, cannabis is definitely in that hip hop culture, like big time. You know, Phillies is definitely kind of a rap thing.
So let's get to the music. I want to know
Yeah.
your influences growing up. What were you listening to as a kid that really opened up your mind to hip hop?
Well, my very first album I ever got was Prince. Uh, what was it called? Purple Rain.
Yeah.
And then the second album I got, that was like for my birthday, right? I went down to Sight and Sounds, Raleigh Square, and the movie was on, and
Mm.
Prince is riding on the motorcycle telling Apollonia that she's not pure enough. You know, everyone came was like, oh my goodness, movies, you know. So I bought that tape. And then my second tape was Run DMC, the official one. I think it was self-titled or something. It was Profile Records. And I
Yeah.
think people, you know what's funny about that? I remember when that tape was like so new. A friend told me about it. He said, "Oh, there's this new band, Rundum MCs." You know, people don't even know how to say the word yet. I was like, "Wow." Now, many years later, it's crazy because that's just such an iconic name. But I actually remember hearing that as a new thing, you know, exciting thing. I used to listen to a lot of 88.9 reggae, right? Because it was just accessible, and they would do really great reggae shows in the 80s. I mean, I'm kind of older, so I was coming then. And I think Yellow Man was like he was huge then, and he also was very funny as a young guy. He was talking about funny stuff. So I got into 88.9 for the reggae, but then they started playing hip hop, and one of the bigger songs back then was like Dougie Fresh, Inspector Gadget,
Yep.
and that was like just all these songs were kind of like at that time as a kid who actually knew about Inspector Gadget, and now the rap guy is flipping it like wow, blew your mind a bit. And so I think most of the rap I heard early on was like stuff on 88.9, so it was like Run DMC and Houdini and Fat Boy. I love the Fat Boys. I got that record. I remember my paper route money. And I was a heavy kid. So I probably identify with that group particularly,
Right.
I think later though, I started pretty much only listening to hip hop or rap. More than many of the youth in Rosdale listened to rap back then. So all my friends were all, that's what everyone listened to. Public Enemy and all that stuff. By the time I got to about 12, 13, I started hanging out with, other kids. And so then I started hearing like metal for the first time, really. I think growing up with MTV, I almost thought that all metal was like, I don't know, Poison or Warrant. And no diss, but that wasn't like the metal that I was exposed to later when I got more into metal. Then I heard like, Sepultura, Biohazard. And especially at the time, I don't remember the time in the 90s when the album Judgment Night soundtrack came
Mhm.
out. And so they paired like, it
That was
was,
one of the best soundtracks ever.
it's
Great
still,
movie.
I listen to that thing.
Great movie.
Yeah, and so I think that kind of got me into more aggressive music.
Mm.
And so as I started listening to more like rock music, like I sort of liked bands that had more of a rap style, like Faith No More or like Red Hot Chili Peppers. And eventually I just got into straight punk rock. And then it was like got into Bad Brains, and I think the Beastie Boys. I always liked the Beastie Boys, and they had a big connection to Bad Brains. And maybe that's part of it, but I think like that era of punk rock was certainly, and for a while I got really into that. Reggae, I'd always listened to reggae, but I got really into Bob Marley for a long time, and dance hall, and I really love dub to this day. I still listen to tons of dub. Um, and then jazz, I didn't always love jazz, but I got a Miles Davis album like the '90s. It was Bitches Brew, and that changed my opinion for jazz altogether. From there, I was always looking for like psychedelic jazz and like I'm not still into like big band, but I do like weird, interesting jazz. And at these days, I think I've been mostly listening to reggae,
Hmm.
just day to day, and I listen to just a lot of dub. I put on like the 3 hour dub mix to just get shit done.
Right,
But
right.
I enjoy that sound and kind of slower beats. But I still listen to like local hip hop. Um, and I do a lot of I go to freestyle events. I like to freestyle a lot, and I really enjoy that. That's actually a very big factor in my
Hmm.
music stuff is like freestyling and 80s
Who's your
DJ.
go-to local artist right now
Or in hip hop.
in hip hop? Yeah, it
Um,
seems exploding right now. There's so much talent in New England going
you,
on.
you know, I've St. Knack. I'm a huge fan of St. Knack, and like I remember seeing him many years ago. I was like, wow, this guy's ill, and now he's like, oh. But I think he has a great style. It's real aggressive and kind of dirty and like rugged a little bit.
Yeah,
I think that's the kind of style I like. Um, uh, Weapon ESP, that guy's crazy. Obviously that's a good friend of yours.
shout out to Wet.
Yeah, I love his delivery and all that. Lyricism is on point. A lot of people complain about there's not proper lyricism, but if you listen to these records, like what are you talking about? Like people are ill in these days.
Right. So,
I really like Czarface. I've been getting to the Czarface stuff.
yeah.
I like MF Doom anyway. So when I saw that he did a record with MF Doom, I was like, oh, look at that record. But then I got the next one that didn't have him on there. Locally, M. Dot, that guy's amazing. I got his record too. It's like you said, there's just amazing things happening now. I don't know if it's been stewing for so long and during COVID where people didn't have places to do things. But yeah, the music is on point these days for sure.
Oh yeah, it really is, and I think it was. I think it was COVID like got everybody locked in, and they just worked and worked and worked and built, and then they were ready to explode. And as soon as lockdown was over,
Yeah.
it's we're hitting we're hitting a golden era in the local scene for sure.
I think a lot of people got equipment.
Mm.
People buy sneakers and like DJ equipment and guitar pedals and weed. There's like 9 things people were
Stimulus
buying.
checks, man. Those stimulus checks, you got to spend them on.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. And you couldn't go anywhere. It's like, oh, let's probably buy a new record player.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I got stuck working through the whole thing because I'm an essential worker, so
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know how that goes.
Yep,
But
yep. And I was doing like Lyft and Uber, and so my shit fell off the cliff.
a lot of people's businesses shut down. I had a
Yeah.
friend that owned a restaurant, and he had to shut down, and it's
It's
really sad, because he built it from the ground up.
Oh, it's horrific. There's
Yeah,
so many restaurants that didn't recover.
yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, that's such a risk of a game to get into anyway. 80% of restaurants fail within the first year, and that's with regular circumstances, not a COVID lockdown situation.
Yeah, that's a tough business.
Oh yeah, it
Yeah,
really.
a lot of people are getting into the food truck business too, and that is still a restaurant.
Hmm.
It's like
Well,
lower overhead, but you see a lot of people going through with that stuff a little bit too, because you have a big dream of selling food, but it's rough out here.
it really, and
Yeah,
the same thing with the cannabis business and music business. It's oversaturation. Everybody and their mother decided to open up a food truck at the same time,
yep.
and you can only have 14 food trucks on the same street. Who's gonna win
If
out?
that, yeah,
And it is. It's just a fact, and a lot of them fail. And it's because no one has any different ideas on how to market themselves either. Everybody just thinks, oh, I can just throw it out there and be selling hot dogs and hamburgers, and we're good.
yeah.
But
I was recently at a food truck festival,
mm,
and I was expecting it to like not be like pay money to go choose which one of the 20 food trucks you're gonna go to.
right,
It's kind of a weird idea. They should have
right,
more music there. See, they should have art and music at food truck festivals. Like they almost don't think of these things. But
exactly.
that's I think where the weed festivals like they're getting it right because they have food trucks there. But like there was that one the Canna Roll last year. I think it was last year. I don't know if they had another one
I think it
this
was a
year.
year before I was there. I was
Oh
there
yeah,
that
yeah.
year.
And they had like carnival rides and like
Hmm,
freaking everything there. It was like
everything.
wrestling. Like they like figured out like what would be fun to do, and they did every idea. Like if you're like we're gonna brainstorm, they're like, okay, let's do them all. Like what? How are we gonna do them all? The Homie Collective had like 120 bands on 3 stages over 3 days, and you think,
Mm.
how do you like even hear any of them? But we go there, it was totally sound separation, and it was like, oh, I don't feel like listening to rave music. I want to go listen to these rappers, or I want to go listen to the metal band. And it was like 8-minute walk at most from one end to the other. Not even 10 minutes. And what an amazing time! So you don't see that kind of thing where you have commercial venues. It's just not possible. So I think that there's such an amazing thing happening with, like you're saying, with the amount of talented people right now, and then the amount of opportunities for them to play at all these weed parties, basically weekend weed parties. And then the fun part is like you make friends,
Right.
So all these bands are making friends. So there's gonna be like other bands that come out of these bands, and then there'll be like super bands at some point, and it's gonna be like everybody just lose their mind. I think they already are. They're already losing
Yeah.
their mind.
They're definitely good places to make connections and grow.
Yep.
That's what that's what everyone wants. You got to move forward,
Yeah.
and you can't be closed minded. You can't just block it off like some people that don't smoke weed and still look at it like it's dirty.
Mm.
Because there are still people out there that do that, and
Sure.
it's like
Yeah.
come on now, it's legal in every state. I can sit on my porch if I want to. Still can't drive and smoke supposedly. That's still illegal, so don't do it, guys. Please don't. But you know how
Yeah.
it is. You know what to do.
Yeah. I mean, uh, cannabis has gotten to very like here in New England, or let me say it this way, in Boston, very destigmatized. Like
Hmm.
without thinking about it, like where it's just normal and you don't care about it. But then you go to New Hampshire, it's not the same. It's not the same
No.
in New Hampshire. No, I've gotten in trouble a few times already, and it's just I don't know. It's a different world. It's weird because this is a problem with all the states where there's some states have it, some states don't. Um, and really, right now, what's happening with New Jersey and Connecticut? So the Connecticut just rolled out a program, very successful program for recreational cannabis. They're being sued though because what some people in their state, this is like people, the mayors from their own state, say the federal piece about cannabis because it's illegal makes anybody who's getting it on the state level a felon, and we can't have that. So they might shut down Connecticut cannabis over the states' right versus federal right thing. And if that happens, I could see that happening in a number of other states. Uh,
Definitely.
anyway, so it's the battle is on, and the pharmaceutical companies are really ramping it up. I saw recently an article that was saying that it was the cannabis that's causing people to have young people to have heart attacks and
Hmm.
strokes, and they're saying all of a sudden there's this new cannabis, like this idea that cannabis has changed.
Right.
It hasn't changed. Like a lot of people say, well, the cannabis is much stronger now, and here's my opinion on that. How did you get cannabis to get stronger? Like there had to have been strong cannabis,
Right.
and so it's through a process where you're selectively, selective genetics.
Hmm.
But like it's not like the strong cannabis didn't exist. You just got the shitty cannabis.
Right.
But there was definitely people who were smoking the strong cannabis in the '60s. Like you know,
It's like trying to breed a show dog.
yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
You're gonna breed a dog to the point where it becomes perfect, and that's where we're almost at with cannabis. We're breeding it to where it's become perfect.
Well, it's actually gone in a few instances anyway, kind of in the wrong direction. I'll say one very particular one. And this isn't the only one, but one of the most famous strains in the world is New York Sour Diesel, and it was an amazing strain. Everyone loved that strain. It's impossible to find now because it's been ruined because of like people tinkering with it.
Hmm.
And so I don't know why, but I'm sure somebody out there says, "Oh, I have the real one," but nobody has the real one, and I don't think anybody. I think it's gone. It got over engineered or something, and now it's gone. Like
Right. And
that
they
one instance where it was
overengineer it to the
perfect.
point of obsolescence,
Yeah,
which is
and there's
why.
a lot of strains like that, and people aren't paying attention because it's so easy to like combine. It's not hard to combine strains. It's just, is it gonna produce a thing worth producing?
Hmm.
That's not always the case. So there's a lot of shitty strains out there that
Hmm.
just whatever reason don't make sense.
Back when
Bad.
back when we were kids, it seemed like a grower was the rarest thing in the world. Like you would not everybody could grow weed. You couldn't just put it in your backyard and cultivate it. It's wild. It's a wild time to see how far it's come from when we were mid '90s, early '90s,
Yeah.
when we were kids running the streets trying to find a 10 bag, to where we are now. It is a wild time.
Yeah, I remember the cops would say, "You have any weed? If I find one seed, you're going to
Right.
jail."
Yeah,
And they
exactly.
weren't telling the truth. Even they would for one seed. Um, yeah, so yeah, things have really come around. And I mean, the Boston Freedom Rally is a great, like just looking at that, its progression and how it's been received. Before and after legalization. Like many years ago, like if you went, you were kind of a dirtbag for going. It was like a bad thing, right? Like, oh, go to the weed rally. Oh, you dirtbag.
Right, right,
Now it's like the marketing event of the year for
right. It's like family oriented and
yeah,
shit. Bring your kids and we got
totally.
a playground and whatnot. It's wild.
Yeah, you get Nabisco products now.
What do you think will happen if it becomes legally federal?
I think that it'll be more controlled.
Hmm.
I think that home grow will go away. Here in Massachusetts, we are very lucky that we have home grow. I say lucky, but um, it's good that we have it. Most people don't. You know, it's a um, it's a huge piece in liberty for cannabis. Illinois doesn't have. Um, they don't have home grow, and their weeds very controlled. They're one of the bigger cannabis markets. They bring in a lot of tax money. In fairness, they use their tax money to do good things. They put it into the people, and but it's very controlled, and it's expensive. It's actually the most expensive cannabis in the entire country, and so I think that will be the federal model. It'll be like the most controlled, most expensive, and I think that one of the rules for cannabis legalization, not the spoken rules, the unspoken rules, is cannabis can't be cheaper than pharmaceuticals.
Right.
And that's sort of the case now. Anyway, like if you're getting it from the dispensary, maybe not. We've gotten huge price drops here. A lot of other states have also, but there's definitely some states that are still double digits per gram. And if you're trying to make, FICO, you need a lot of that material, so it's very expensive. It almost is cost prohibitive, and I think that's what they want. I think they want cannabis to be cost prohibitive. um, the federal piece is a lot to it. So right now, the truck driving industry, they don't have enough truck drivers. They can't get people in there because nobody wants to take this piss test. People who are driving are failing if they live in a legal state. If they take CBD sometimes, they can pop the test. That's what they say. Don't even take CBD. Anyone in the military, most veterans, the VA, um, you know, if those things change, it's a big deal. The federal scheduling is a big deal. Even if that gets shifted from class one to class three, that has huge implications for whether federal entities like banks can work with a company that's selling. Right now, the banks aren't allowed technically to work with companies that are selling federally prohibited cannabis because it's a class one substance. If it was a class three substance, it wouldn't be the case. So it would open up banking without worrying about getting the SAFE Act, which is the SAFE Act has been that was Earl Blumenauer out of Oregon. He led that one, and that's just to protect the banks from working with cannabis businesses, and they can't even pass that. And that doesn't do anything for anybody growing weed or anything. It's like it doesn't even help anybody; it just helps the banks, and they can't even pass that one. So if they were to reschedule it automatically, that stuff wouldn't be a factor anymore. If they go full legalization, not like versus full decriminalization, legalization would be an apparatus where they're able to tax and sell cannabis and establish dispensaries, that kind of thing. It'll probably look a lot more like what New York is trying to do or what Illinois is doing. And there's that control thing. And that's a lot different than, say, Massachusetts or Maine. New Hampshire has a very similar idea to what I'm saying for the federal government, which is a very controlled. The state grows the cannabis and sells the cannabis and benefits from the cannabis. That's what the federal piece will look like. And likewise, New Hampshire doesn't allow home grow. And there's a big move. One of the biggest things that's happening right now, economically, it's going to be horrible. Is they're reclassifying all the Delta products, Delta 8, Delta 10, Delta 0. That stuff is now even in the hemp bill for 23, where it was allowed to use anything derived from legal hemp. Hemp is anything less than 0.3% THC. Now hemp is very specifically either going to be like wood or hempcrete or fabric or paper, or it's going to be something you would consume. And if it is, then it's going to be controlled under marijuana, under the quote unquote marijuana eligible businesses, so like dispensaries. And that's happening now in Connecticut. It's happening in was Arkansas. I can't remember if it was Arkansas or I can't remember what state it was. I'll think of it in a second. Anyway, um, there's so much to the federal piece. That's all I'm saying. And right now, people are really being screwed over in Vermont because of the federal piece. Vermont just had all these floods, and there's a number of cannabis businesses that are had huge losses or they're flooded their whole entire place or who knows what. But they aren't eligible for any relief funds.
Not at all.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
right. Yeah, actually, they're going to have a big concert middle of September. I forget what the name of it is right now. But anyway, the people are kind of getting together to try to address it on their own. But federal government is giving them the middle finger, and they tax them every single dollar they make. So it's not like they're not receiving money from cannabis. It's dumb, kind of, if you were to think like a normal person, that shouldn't they help these businesses that are bringing in this tax money? But they don't see it that way. They see it like
it's because they don't run that business.
Yeah.
Once they run that business, there'll be relief.
That's right.
It's the same way with the tobacco industry,
Yep.
the dairy industry, all these the cow industry. It's the same thing. If they run it, then they'll take care of their babies. But until then, they don't care. That's what they want. They want all these little mom and pop shops to be destroyed. So when they do move in, there'll be less competition to take over.
That's exactly right.
That's the American way, man. You know that.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even hide that. They're like, we can't compete with these, convenience stores selling Delta 10. That was actually like really what the problem was in Connecticut and a number of other things. Yeah, there would be like no more Delta 10 next year. It'd be gone. You don't even find it because why would you have Delta 10 if you had marijuana available? You wouldn't. Like it's like it only exists because of a prohibition.
Right.
You're like, why would you chemically? I don't know. It's not that good. I've tried some Delta 8 products. They can go away, I think. But it's horrible though for the people involved in that business, and I'm not. That's the part I feel terrible for. Is like there's so many, like in New Hampshire, there's an overwhelming number of companies that are CBD companies, but and really they're selling gummies and Delta 10 and Delta 8 and vapes that are just going to be like, sorry,
Right. Right.
You can't sell off your inventory.
Shut down. You got to find a new job. That's all.
Yeah.
I wanted to move on to our segment we call "What's Your Issue." I'm sure if you've seen the show before, you know what your issue is. It could be a pet peeve or it could be a big world-ending issue to you. So, Graham, what's your issue, bro?
There's a lot of ghosting happening. So I don't know why it's become so normalized, but it's me. Like I find it, I feel it, I see it, but it's not just me. I hear this all the time. Is that we've kind of gotten to this very impersonal place where, like, you're almost like a channel. Like you're not a person anymore. You're like a channel, and I'm like, oh man, I'm kind of tired of hearing this channel. Next channel, like as we relate to people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, you want to meet up on Friday? I'll check you out maybe at 6:00. And then the person's like, okay, yeah, let's meet up 6:00. And then, you check in at 6:00. Nothing.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's how I think it's like, I think it's become a phenomenon. It's like one time or somebody acts messed up or, whatever. That's what I was saying. I think this is a trend, and I think this is like normal now. It's like if I got ghosted, most people say, oh yeah, I always get ghosted.
That's Lockdown did it, man. Lockdown did it.
Yeah, I think
that.
Yeah.
Almost 2 years of stay away, and that becomes normal. What do they say? It takes 21 days to form an addiction, right?
Yep.
So we got addicted to being away from everyone.
That's pretty interesting.
That's wild. And you know how the human brain works with addiction. It's going to hold on to it until it finds it's another addiction to latch onto.
Yeah.
I don't think we've been beyond that point. We're still kind of in lockdown mode. We're still stay away from me mode. And it's going to be a while.
Yeah, I mean, even still, like masks, we never really informally like somehow just masks sort of went away, but now you still see masks and it's still legitimate. Like you know, what I mean, like when you see someone in mask,
I
they're
haven't been mask at work. Well, again, we just started wearing masks at work last week.
oh shit, there
Yeah,
you go.
yep. Because there were so many COVID patients come in, and if it's a certain percentage of the population of the building,
Yeah.
then you have to wear a mask. So we hit that percentage, and so now we're all masked up again until further notice. And
Oh damn.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's another thing. You know, like it's okay to slap a mask on it. You guys will be fine.
You
It's like
know, I never. I always thought that the Fuji song, "The Mask," I always thought that would make be a lot more popular. 2020. It's like it was. I don't think I heard it once.
probably not. Nobody really listens
Nobody
to
want to hear that song.
in 2020. But
Yeah.
we're going to be coming to the end of our time here tonight, and I appreciate you coming on, bro, chopping it up with us.
Oh yeah,
And
well, I appreciate you, man. And I mean, just want to tell you that I do the Wash Daily is my Monday through Friday cannabis news show, and I cover specifically legal and medicinal and industrial hemp. I don't really talk about taking bong hits so much. I love bong hits, but that's not what my show is about. I talk about like cannabis news, and yeah. So I appreciate you having me on here today too, and I really like what you guys are doing and I was at your homies over there, the Hip Hop Lifers event, and the music you guys get together, the people around. I don't know what's going on, but it's amazing. So I
yeah,
think if you hear about these events, oh, actually, that was a culture
that
corner event.
was our
But
thing.
but but all these little crews are out here doing these things with these musicians, Ferris Electric over there at the in Worcester at E Hayes,
Yeah, yeah,
the Sunday Drip. I love that thing. It's like I would seriously go if it was every Sunday. I would go every Sunday,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of people who would too. So I appreciate you guys as putting out stuff and putting out content and putting people out and whatever all this promotional amazing stuff you're doing for no money. You're just out here,
Just do
blood,
it for the
blood,
love.
sweat, and
Yeah,
tears.
that's
Someone
it.
has to do it. I'm a voluntarist, so I appreciate that about you.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, we do it because we love it, man, and especially in the local scene, it's because we want all these guys to be heard, and
Yep.
we want these guys to be seen, because we know what's up, so we want everybody else to know what's up too. So we're gonna try to do what we can to put them on, and shout out to Hip Hop Lifers for sure, because Tony really cemented the scene and the local scene in on the internet and got everybody paying attention to who's who and what's going on. So
I definitely discovered like at least a dozen people from that
oh
group
yeah,
alone.
oh yeah,
At least.
oh yeah. So now's
And
the
the
time.
Savage Land shit is crazy. I was
Part
so
two's
happy.
coming soon. I keep hearing part two's coming soon. So
Oh yeah, I'm in. I'll buy it.
now it's time to plug away, plug your stuff, plug where people can find you. Where can we get at you?
Oh yeah, so the main site is cannabos.org. It's CANNABOS, like not like I'm the boss, but like for Boston. And it's about how important cannabis was to the formation of New England and Boston in those days. And then the other project I'm doing is the Wash Daily, and that's just my new show that's connected to that. And I do a lot of interviews, and we're putting these interviews together over Herp Alpha Records on a project called Smoke and Herb, and that's over at Motherload Radio, and that's on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. If you went to Motherload Radio, it'd be on on streaming. At some point, we'll get the site together. We kind of just started that project not too long ago, but that's kind of fun. And then the I guess the other thing that we should probably talk about is this that there's so much amazing music happening. I try to get out there and cover it all, and I write these articles about it, and it's called "Toking the High Road." But if you have any events you want me to cover ever, I would always do that. If anyone hears this and wants me to come write about something, I do it because I think it's important to write about the things that people aren't seeing, and I try to help that. I'm not really into writing about already well-known things or commercial stuff or big dispensaries. I'd rather write about somebody making cookies with their grandmother. I think it's a better story.
Right.
So, and that's at TokingTheHighRoad.info. That's under cannabis.org. That's where I spend a lot of my time.
Shout out to you, man. Shout out to you for doing good things for the world. And
Thanks,
again,
brother.
we appreciate you coming on the Hip Hop Happy Hour podcast, bro.
Well, I appreciate you having me. I'm a big fan, and keep putting it out there, buddy.
All right, bro. Thank you so much. And yeah, Corner Crew, we out.
Thanks,
Peace.
sir. Peace.